Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing 12 Rivers by Good Games Publishing. 12 Rivers is a 2 to 4 player marble game, tableau building, hand management game. There's a lot of things kind of working together here, but there's definitely a high toy factor. We're going to get into all of that in a minute, but first, this channel is currently sponsored by Allplay. More about them at the end of this video. But 12 Rivers is a 2 to 4 player game in which players are ultimately trying to score as many points as possible. Now, there's a few ways you're going to get points, but a good sample of how you're going to get a lot of your points in this game is going to be getting these various villagers. You're going to start the game with a villager who potentially will give you, every full villager will be worth 3 points. That means if you can get these marbles, we'll talk about how you get them. If you can get them onto these villagers over here, you're going to get 3 points for every completed villager. That's a big part of the points. It's also going to get points for the fact that each marble has its own value over here, 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1, so players are going to be competing over different marbles to try to get the best ones possibly and place them in their villagers to score points from them. But then additionally, as you play the game, you're going to have the opportunity to gather more of these, and these all give you a way to score points, and it's important to note you don't need to fill them to score points. This one will reward you for villagers that are filled, but for example, if you take this one over here, if you have the most greens, you get 8 points regardless of whether you fill this or not. That's an important distinction because I find that it's easily overlooked in this game. But outside of that, that's kind of how you score points. It's going to be a lot of your points, you get a few points from other areas. That's going to be the bulk of your points. They're going to be from your villagers' abilities and from the sheer value of the marbles you take. As far as how you play the game, you're going to have your various tokens over here, your turn tokens over here, and you're going to start your working your way down this pathway, taking a token and placing it somewhere over here. So for example, those white marbles are worth 5, so I can possibly try to figure out how to get that white marble. The easiest way to do so is to lock this in place over here, where I'll guaranteed get it because I've stopped the white marble as soon as it comes out the gate. That will make more sense as you see things happening in this game. Let me move this over a drop so you can see that, but there's a white marble right over there. If I want it, I can place it here. The problem is that's going to cost me 3 cards to place that there, and that's going to get very expensive very quickly. Is it worth it? Possibly, but I tend to try to prioritize my cards over here, so I'm actually going to start off, I'm going to place my first token down over here, which is a very fun spot, not always worth it, but it's a fun spot to go, because I'll get any marbles that aren't claimed that go down here, I will get them as they land here. The next player goes, they're trying to figure out where to go. Maybe they play 2 cards and they go over here, because this way they have a decent chance of getting the white marble. They will actually going to go 1 higher to be certain. They'll play 2 cards. Now the only way they won't get the white marble is if someone else plays 3 cards, which is possible but a little less likely to happen. So they're going to go ahead and pay cards from their hands, not benefiting from their abilities. Cards have abilities, but they're paying those cards, they're discarding them, and they place their token over there. The next player goes, it's blue over here. They actually want to get one of these tokens over here. You have a variety of tokens that come onto the board. I will note we're not playing with these over here because this is going to be the if we were playing a 4-player game. And so here we can try to figure out where do we want to put this. Maybe we'll just place it down over here. We're only going to get 1 marble from that, but we also get this token, which is very helpful. So these tokens can be traded in for various abilities. So sometimes paying 0 cards based on where it's at over there, and almost certainly getting a marble out of this, not certainly, but almost certainly, plus getting an ability, that's a worthwhile trade-off. It's back to red. Let's go ahead and make sure we get first access to the various villagers, or at least as close to first access. Going down here is going to be how you get additional villagers. You can pay 2 or 1 cards to guarantee first access, or you can just go to the first 0 spot, at least as long as it's available, and I will get the first access from the villagers unless somebody else goes here. But again, there's plenty of villagers, I should be fine. You're going to continue placing these. In fact, let's go ahead and just place a bunch of them. I'm not going to worry too much about where I'll go. We'll take this over here, we'll take that ability. We're going to place this down over here to get the, we're actually going to get a card. If you go in this row over here, you get a card, so you actually get to draw an extra card, which is helpful. We're going to place this, you know what, we're going to try to lock it over here, get that first spot there. Green's going to pop down over here, and then blue's actually going to say, you know what, I really want a particular villager, we're going to move our way down here. Once all of these are placed, we're going to release the floodgates. We're going to go like that, and things will start falling down. Working your way from the top downwards, green now has first access from either of these 2. They can only take 1, they don't get multiple. The only time you get multiple is down here, but they'll take 1 and they'll put it down onto the alpaca over here. Then their token will be released and it goes down, and now green gets access again from those. In this case, because purple's worth the most points, we'll take purple, because why not? Then over here, we'll release that floodgate, and then we'll work our way down to over here, and then red will take, well, in blue or pink, we'll take pink over here, and then we'll move those down there. And then over here, we draw the blue. Blue's going to take purple because it's worth the most over there. And then these will fall down. And then blue will take purple again because he has another token over there. And then finally, the remaining marbles are going to fall down completely over there, at which point red will get all 4 of those, which seems like a lot, and it is a lot. I find generally you get anywhere between 0 to 3 marbles down here, and 0 is a possibility. Sometimes, I think one time I've seen someone get 4 marbles, but anything can happen. The reason you got 4 over there is because I'm not playing a lot of the cards. As you play the game, you also have the ability to play these cards for their abilities, and they do a variety of things, but one of the ones that frequently happens is players playing cards to take extra marbles when those happen. There's also these various abilities. These tokens you take, sometimes they will let you take extra tokens as well as they come. So even though you have a full 9 marbles and only 9 tokens, and some of the tokens are going down here, players often play extra abilities. That means that you don't actually guarantee that you get anything down there. Once you work your way all the way to the bottom, all of these are out over here. Once you work your way to the bottom, starting with blue, you'll be able to draft a villager. Drafting villagers will give you cards in the top left corner over here. So better villagers have fewer cards, worse villagers have more cards. So you can go ahead and try to take those cards over here, which again helps to your economy. And then you take that villager, putting it in front of you, adding it to your villagers, at which point you're going to be taking the various marbles over here that you've been acquiring and placing them down onto matching spots on those villagers. Rainbow spots can take anything, and then colored spots have to take the specific ones matching their color. That is basically how you play through the cycle. There's a few other small nuances to get to, but the overall idea is across the rounds of play, you're going to be placing your tokens out, trying to get those marbles, trying to build out your villagers, trying to play your cards at the opportune time, and trying to ensure that you get everything you need as far as how it best helps you build out your tableau and score as many points as possible, both from the marbles themselves as well as from the villagers, while being mindful of your hand and whether you have enough cards to do everything you want, because you have to pick and choose where your time, energy, and resources go in 12 Rivers. With that, let's go ahead and dive into my review, what I like, don't like, and see others not liking, all of that, starting with what I like. In general, this game has a high toy factor. You're pulling out a little divot over here and watching the marbles flood down. That is something that generally has a high toy factor. People are involved and invested, even though it's not really like a ton of luck here. There's not really like luck. It's purely deterministic, but it's still fun to watch it happen and then try to place your tokens and play the players. That's a big part of the game, is playing the players. Okay, I know you're also going to want that white marble, but how high can I go to get it without paying through the nose to get it? How essential is it to me? Can you even afford it? How is that going to play out? Because you can get the fun thing about this game, one of the fun things about this game, is you can get a lot for very little. As you saw over there, placing that red gets you 4 marbles, which again, I've seen happen in a game, even though 4 is a lot. Or alternatively, doing things like, I've seen people get a white marble, but only playing 1 because it happened to work out, no one got in the way, or there are multiple things happen in the game, and it feels very fun when you get a lot for very little in the game. On the other hand, there are times you place things and you overpay for things you don't get. Maybe sometimes I've seen people play, like you can go over here paying 2, and hypothetically you can get nothing out of there if both people go there, which can happen. So you can have times where you play something and you get nothing out of it. The combination of villager abilities is easily going to be my favorite thing as far as trying to optimize and strategize in this game, because for the most part, there's a little bit of a pushing the player, so to speak, of trying to figure out what the value of a thing is and how much I can pay and you won't get in the way. But then for me, the most fun is easily combining villager abilities to try to work those together with the marbles to optimize how many points you're getting from those villagers. That's easily the most fun for me, especially when you realize that you don't have to actually fill out the villagers to score them. So there's a trade-off of, do you want that 5-point marble, or do you just want to go to the village and get an extra person who might give you 4 points and 2 cards, and you don't have to do anything else to get those. So there's a lot of trying to combine your villager abilities as well as the card abilities. The card abilities in the game, the cards are full of abilities. You have to play matching cards to benefit from their abilities, so you do have to work your way towards that. But getting matches is pretty easy, and discarding cards that don't match is also pretty useful because you're discarding cards for a lot of things in this game, so you never really feel like you're stuck in a hard place. It's just a question of which abilities you're able to pull off. Overall, this game gives you a good amount of strategy, trying to get things, a fun toy factor. Those are all the things I like in the game. As far as things I don't like in the game, the first thing is, I'll say, the token powers over here. I often felt those were underwhelming, or even just unbalanced. I'd say card abilities and token powers, some are really useful and cool, and some are underwhelming. With the cards, I don't mind it as much because you're going to be discarding a lot of cards anyways to get things, so if you have cards that don't help with your abilities, fine. But the tokens are theoretically cool. Lots of them are useful. They do give you points if not used, especially if you combine certain things, so like there are ways to get things out of them. But for the most part, I found them imbalanced, not always fun. But overall, and even villagers, the villager abilities as well are kind of all over the place. That's a bit more balanced by the card draw, but there are some really strong villagers where you can get a lot of points. Like over here, most green is worth 8 points and you get 2 cards. Obviously, you have to work your way there. That's a good amount of cards and points, and working towards green is a little bit of a trade-off because green are often worth fewer points, but it just means you're going to be going down here a lot, hoping to get those residual greens, unless players are trying to get in your way to stop you. constantly playing cards for the economy of the game instead of the abilities feels a little less fun. That's another complaint I have about the game, where I'm a big fan of games letting you do things that feel fun. And because there's abilities in the cards, and because I would say 2/3 to 3/4 of your cards in the game are going to go towards the economy of the game and not for the abilities on the cards themselves. So you kind of have all these optimistic promises in your hand, many of which you're going to have to trade in the game, which just kind of removes a little bit of that fun factor of getting sets, of getting abilities. You can have a hand. I've had this happen in the game where I have like 6 cards and it's 3 sets. It's 3 different abilities. That's amazing. Except throughout the course of the turn, you're going to have to discard those cards to actually get what you want. Outside of that, I'll say that while there are occasionally interesting turns, for the most part, it is pretty straightforward and repetitive. That's going to be my biggest my biggest real complaint here, that there's a low replayability outside of the toy factor, because for the most part, across the rounds of play, you're kind of doing the same thing. When you dive into it a second time, you're kind of doing the same thing. There's not a lot that really mixes up the game. The goals are the same every single time. The combination of villager abilities, that's going to be the only real thing that mixes up the experience, but for the most part, you see a good amount of those abilities in any single game that I don't feel a strong drive to play this again and again and again. It was fun the first time. It was a little less fun the second time. A little less fun the third time. It's one of those games that becomes a little less interesting the more you dive into it. It still kind of maintains its general charm, so it's not a bad game, but like that initial toy factor of you're rolling marbles down a river, it gets less fun as you play through it, and ultimately it's just a pretty okay hand management, point optimization game with a toy factor that slowly loses its charm the more you play it. As far as I can see others not liking, there are definitely turns where you might get nothing in the game. Not just when you go down here. That's kind of a risk reward. Sometimes you get a lot, sometimes you get a little, although that can actually be even worse. Sometimes you see someone else go there, get 4 marbles, you get there first next turn and you get nothing. That is definitely a not fun moment in the game. But not just there, you can go other places and not get stuff in the game. You have to be mindful of that as you choose to gamble on what is or isn't worth something. It definitely is on the lighter side as well. Again, this is a fairly straightforward game. It's on the light side, which is not necessarily a problem. Just know what you're getting into. That toy factor charm is there because it's appealing to I would say more of a lighter audience overall. And then activating the villagers. Like I kind of touched upon this already, but the fact that the villagers activate without actually being full, I find is constantly something I need to remind new players of. I tell them when I'm teaching the game, but the problem is when you're learning a game, it's not something you don't hear every detail when you're learning a game. You don't know the full framework of what's going on. So I find I have to teach that rule, but then also at the end of like turn 1, I'm like, by the way, reminder, you don't have to get marbles onto all your guys in order to activate the scoring. The scoring activates without them. That is something I constantly find I have to remind people. People assume, or they mentally have it tied in, you have to fill out your villager in order to round up the scoring. As far as final thoughts on 12 Rivers, 12 Rivers is a fine game. I don't mind the game at all. It has a decent toy factor, a great table presence, and overall the player abilities, the villager abilities, all of that is pretty fun. For me, the biggest issue is that there's not a ton that keeps me here. It's a fun game that kind of slowly wears down the more I play it overall. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. It is fun, it is charming, but the first play was definitely my favorite play of the game, and it got progressively a little less fun the more I dove into it. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out Potion Explosion if you're looking for another kind of toy factor game of just exploding your various marbles as they roll out of a chute and trying to combine abilities. And then check out Fireball Island if you want something completely chaotic, again using marbles with a high toy factor and a lot more randomness. And then I mentioned that AllPlay is a channel sponsor. If you're looking for something kind of in this charm, weight factor, I'd say a little bit more weight to it, check out River Valley Glassworks for another game that is very similarly themed, a little less of a toy factor, but definitely has the component factor. Check out River Valley Glassworks. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.